Hey, I just wanted to go over another shot on kind of like a breakdown on what is expected and what you would have to do to accomplish a specific shot. This one, the last one was video was fun to do, but I didn't really know any information on the shots because I didn't work on any of them. This one, I'm going to have some better insight because I worked on this shot. This is from a shot I did 2 or 3 years ago. Um, I'm not sure how long actually on Legion, the TV show. I think it's on FX. I'm not really sure to be honest with you. I've never seen the show, so um, but we're just gonna watch it real quick. This is one of the shots. I did a few shots in this episode. It's kind of a long one. It was not easy. And then so this is I kind of pumped up the exposure, as you can see. It's at 2. So this is what it really aired at right here. A lot darker. Those little bumps or whatever you want to call those little weird edits, those are actually have to do with story. So she's in some like dream. I honestly don't know what's happening. I think he's the devil, um, and this might be either some other dimension or dream or something. I just know they have an awesome chair that I wish I had. Um, but yeah, so those little weird jumps are supposed to be there. So when I worked on it, those edits weren't there. So I worked on the full frame range, and it actually, let's see, I think if I remember right, she ended up going like all the way past over here. So I worked on, the camera kept moving this way. And I remember working until she like crossed over this area right here. So I worked on, it was a little more frame, a few more frames than that. Um, and as you can see, it aired really dark. So a lot of the work I did was hidden by darkness, which happens, is unfortunate. Um, Whoops, let me do that. There we go. Okay. So let me just explain. I got the shot um, in the program Shotgun, which you guys will probably use. I saw that it was assigned to me, and it had some notes, and it just basically said, um, remove the seams on the floor and remove her arm. So there were seams like across the floor on here, and we had to because I think this is like a plywood, like little pieces of plywood throughout. So we had to, and you can kind of see, I think, at least I can, maybe it's just because I worked on it, but I feel like you can kind of still see some of them. But the idea was to not clean the floor, it was just to get rid of the seams. They still wanted to keep all this dirt all throughout, like all these um, scuffs and everything. They liked all that and they wanted to keep it. I don't know if I can crank this some more. Let's try this. So this is kind of starting to get really compressed looking, but so like all this scuff stuff they wanted to keep. So that actually made it even more challenging because we had to remove um, seams, but then keep the scuff look. So I'm just going to go over real quick. So I watched it a few times and I thought to myself, I didn't get any tracking information, which is a bummer because this is a pretty big 3D move. I mean, the whole camera basically is moving like this throughout the shot. So I didn't get a camera. So I had to track it myself. So I used Nuke. They said I could use Synthesize because the place I did this at was at Zoic in Culver City, which I've worked for a couple times, but I didn't know Synthesize. I opened it up and it was just, I was like, I can't take the time to learn a new program while I'm trying to get a shot done. So I did it in Nuke. And basically what I did, this might sound a little confusing, but um, I watched it and I was like, okay, I'm not very good at frame by frame paint. That's pretty hard. So what I decided to do was do projections. In a Nuke, you can have a camera, and then you can in 3D space. Like so, what I would do is I would go to a frame where like she's already past it, like right here, and so then I would mask out like this area. So then this would be my whole. This would be like a patch that I would have. And what I would do is with my camera that I solved, I would then get another camera, degrain this section. Well, I degrained the whole plate actually, so I'm working on a degrained plate for this. so there's no noise. So I'd get a patch for this section, and then I'd project it on, and then as she walked by, I would basically erase her arm, so my patch would be revealed underneath. And then what I had to do, I didn't get a CG arm or anything. I think so. She was wearing like a black glove from like here down for some reason. I think they thought the black would help hide it. I don't know what they were thinking. If I remember right, I painted this and I tracked it on um, because I got nothing. I got a plate with some directions. So TV can be pretty brutal sometimes, where they're like, "Here you go." And at the time, I got the shot. There are other shots with the same situation, but no one had started theirs yet. So there wasn't a method like, "Hey, this is what I did for my shot and it worked really well." And when other people were starting to get methods in, we found out pretty quickly that each shot was different enough to where they didn't really work from shot to shot. So let me just go back to what I did. So what I would do is I would take this frame right here, right? Like I said, I'd frame hold it to, let's say this is frame 77, let's just say. So I'd frame hold 77, and then I would use that frame as a projection as she walked over here. So they would work there, right? And then when she's past it, let's say here, I would go back to, I'd use this, what this node called a switch, and I'd go back to the live plate. So this would no longer be the frame hold anymore. This would be the live actual plate, which the reason why I did that instead of keeping it a frame hold is because by the time we get down here, there's a lot of perspective change. You can see this light right here changes, as you can see. So you always want as much plate as possible because it's obviously going to be the most realistic. So this, if I remember right, most likely is a patch. And then when she gets over here, this is now live plate, and now this is a patch. And I probably grabbed the patch from here, probably most likely. So then I'd frame hold this section and do the same thing over, and I'd project this whole area right here while she walked over here, and then by the time she got here, this would be back to live plate. So now none of these are projections anymore. This is all actual plate, basically. And now this section is a patch that I'm projecting on. So then I'm basically revealing the section of her arms. So I basically did that over and over and over. So now this would be back to live, real plate, but then this section might be a patch. And then honestly, I actually think I did a really big one for this one because it was such a big move. It was really hard to get correct. So then this might be one giant patch. And that's how I kind of accomplished the erasing of the arm. And then I just tracked her little nub or whatever you want to call it in, and did some color corrections as she walked by things. As you can see, it's kind of gets a little, when she walks by this area, it gets a little pink on her arm. So I kind of faked some interactive lighting on it. And same with this area, I kind of whitened it up and did a light wrap to kind of blow it out a little bit when she walked over it. And yeah, it took a lot of time, but I just kind of did it over and over and over and switched from patch to patch to patch and then to another patch and everything. And like I said, when she would be over one patch, everything else was back to live. And that way we maintained the footage almost 100%. You don't want to lose. You want to use the plate as much as you can. Plate's always your best reference too. Um, but if I remember right, there was something kind of funky with her arm in this area. I think I might have had to. I can't really remember, but I think I might have had to paint this guy out and track him back in or something for some reason. I'm not really 100% sure. But I'm going to crank this so you can kind of see it better. Again, I'm going to make this 4. And if we look, you can probably, let's see if we can see where the patches switch. I mean, the whole goal is not to, but obviously, like I wouldn't want you to be able to see it as a as an artist. My whole goal is so you don't know what's happening. But Hmm. I feel like something funky's happening there. This feels like it's breathing a little bit. I don't know if you can, I don't know if that's just a light change. And then there's this weird, like, so I have, this seems odd to me. This might, see how her arms right here? So you see how that's kind of on the same, like this. So basically what I'm saying is up here could be plate and this could be a patch. I don't know if you can see that little line right there. Just this hint of a line. So I don't know, and it feels like this starts going away and this lighting's staying kind of like this. It's kind of weird. So that might be my patch. I don't know if I would have kept it on that long though. I don't know if you guys saw that. Watch this area right here. You can actually, I think, see the transition right there from live to patch. I don't know why I'm taking my shot apart and pointing out all the mistakes, but hey, it's fun. Hopefully everyone learns from something from it. And then the floor was, like I said, it was actually really tricky because um, they wanted all this dirt in there, and there were lines, seams. So if I remember right, let's see, for this one, we did a whole bunch of different things to get those. Like we would do a paint stroke, like one paint stroke, and then we would then in Nuke with the paint stroke, you can actually move it. So I would do one paint stroke, and then as it moved, I would just kind of hand track it almost, just highlight that paint stroke and just move it where it needs to be. And then we did some minusing and plussings and different Nuke things to help color correct and um, get rid of some of the seams. Which I mean, he didn't want it perfect, the director or the VFX soup. He just didn't want you to notice seams. But I think when you know that there were seams here, you kind of they kind of stand out. Like I feel like there's definitely was a seam here and maybe like here. But again, it's airing like this, so you can't tell. The big issues were the seams like in this area where it was light. And so when I think when I said earlier that I worked on it till because the camera keeps moving this way, and she ended up walking, I think, over this, and I had to do patches all the way over here. That's those are usually called handles. So you're usually working on a show, and they'll tell you what the handles are. So I worked on it before um, this start. She I think was more over here, so I do remember having a patch for this section. Um, so usually a show will have 8 frame handles. So what that is like if we look down here, there'd be 8 frames this way, and then there's going to be 8 frames this way on either side of your shot. And it could be, they could tell you it's 8 frames, it's 12. I think Picard I just worked on was 12 frames or 16. It was kind of high. Um, so then you're actually working on more frames that aren't necessarily going to be in the cut, but it gives the editor and the director a little bit of wiggle room if they decide they want to come in early or exit the shot later. So if you ever hear the term like handles, that's what they're talking about is on the frames you're working on before and after the cut. So I did a whole bunch of shots on this particular episode, but I just grabbed two. I wish I had my nuke scripts. They don't let you take those usually. Zoic is what you call what is it? Marvel compliant, I believe. So basically, Marvel compliant. I think this is a I don't think technically this is a Marvel. Honestly, I know it's a terrible information. I'm not really sure. I think this might have been a Marvel show. I'm not sure. But to work on Marvel products, you have to be Marvel compliant. And one of the big things to be Marvel compliant is that you cannot, uh, the artist computers can't be hooked to the internet. So basically, you can't take anything. You can't if I needed a tree that I found on the internet that'd be perfect for a shot, I would have to go. They have these stations at some studios that are like, oh, you can go to the internet and get stuff from here, or you'd have to request it and say, hey, here's this link, here's this image I want, and have like a producer or somebody grab, or PA or somebody would get it for you, and then put it into the pipeline, and then you would have access to it. It can be kind of ridiculous with their Marvel, uh, the Marvel ways. These shots were really hard because they're really wide angle to track. That's what made them really difficult. This one was really wide angle, and this was really hard to track. This one had some different issues. Let me just go actually a little bit higher. Um, so I had to track this one also in 3D space. I had to remove the arm. So basically, a lot of the work was happening like in this region here as she's walking. Obviously, the tricky part is the light and making the light feel natural. Um, I don't know if you. So what I had to do is, again, I had nothing. I also still had to remove the seams in the shot, and um, this one was mostly I just painted, and then moved the splines. So that one, nothing fancy on that one. The difference about this one though is, for some reason, I got no camera, I got no CG, and they kind of just threw me to the VFX wolves and was like, hey, get this done. And I was like, all right. So I tracked it, found out my coworker had a CG arm, and I was like, hey, let me have one of your frames. So I went into his shot, and I think it was, I'm not sure what frame it was in his shot, but I basically got an angle of the CG arm that I thought would work the best. And so this right here, because the glove came all the way up on this one, so I didn't have any skin to paint or any reference. So what I did was is I grabbed his CG arm, tracked, moved the anchor point up here like we do in After Effects. So if I have to rotate it, it would rotate down, like more down here, and the anchor, obviously the anchor's up here, right? So I tracked it to the arm, moved it as her arm naturally was in the shot, rotoed this hair, um, rotoed this area back on, and put it over the CG arm. So only obviously this little nub is showing of CG. And then I don't know if you can tell, but there's this little scar on her arm. And so I'm using one frame of a frame hold of CG. So what I did was I painted out that scar. I don't know if you can see it there. Painted this scar out. And then as she moved, I keyed the scar. So I remasked the scar again. So I just had access to just the scar. And then as she moved, I just moved the scar a little bit. So it felt like it was kind of rotating. So it was a super cheat on her, on that scar, to give it some 3D. I don't know. You can't really tell that it's moving, but it's slightly moving this way. It's not the best footage either. So it's really hard to tell. And then, what I did is, like, I don't know if you can tell here, I'd go in and give some rim light of this super pink to feel like it was kind of hitting there. And then I hand tracked the CG arm in. That's about all I did on this one. I mean, this one was tough too, but not as tough. But yeah, let's watch those again real quick. I don't know why the caching is kind of messing up with that edit. It's kind of obnoxious. So each shot's different. Usually they're not, and each studio is different. This one, I literally got nothing. I got the plate, and I was told what I needed to do, and I watched it a whole bunch of times to try to figure out my approach. I literally watched it probably for like 5 minutes, watched it over and over and over, and then I realized that projecting and switching between each projection was probably my best bet, because I'm also trying to do as little paint as possible. So it was tedious, and it's fairly tedious and kind of difficult. But if you think about it, all I was doing was basically painting one frame here, and then painting another frame here, and then another frame here, and then another frame here. and then just blending between them to make them feel like it was all natural. And also, obviously, we can see there was, well, this doesn't want to go now, a little bit of a, oh, it's not showing it now. Hmm, it's not letting me go. I don't know why it's holding there. It's kind of weird. Obviously, it's a cache issue, but obviously we saw that little pop earlier, so yeah. But when it's this dark, it's hard to tell. Anyways, hopefully that gives you some information. Um, Going back to my point, is some studios, sorry, is that some studios, they gave me nothing on this. No camera, no CG, no roto, no paint. Some studios give you usually the bigger movie, the more you get. So when I worked on Pirates, I worked on the last Pirates movie, and I would get a shot, and it would have she would have been rotoed out. The paint, most likely, well, on the shot, maybe not really, because I probably wouldn't have done this shot on a big show like that, because it mostly would paint prep. Um, but yeah, you'd get roto, you'd get paint, you'd get sometimes keys already, but then you're always going back in and refining the keys. You're doing the color corrections. You're trying to take it to that last 5%, making it look as best as possible. So smaller studios, you're going to get shots like this, which can be really fun, where you get to do everything on it, which is really cool. Bigger studios, um, you might get a lot more CG and integration, and not as much like um, keying and stuff, because sometimes, depending on the studio, sometimes they have juniors that do that for you. Or if you're a junior there, then you're going to be doing a lot of that stuff, which is also I actually enjoy. So it all depends on where you go. It's each place can be different. Um, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to message me. Hopefully everyone's doing well, and maybe I will do a shot if I ever get my shot from Sonic, maybe because that was I have an all CG one, and since that's um, a bit different, maybe if I get it before the semester's over, I'll go over over what I did on that one. So I hope everyone's doing well. If you have any questions on the assignment or on this, feel free to let me know. All right, have a good one.